of American Idol is Jamal Roberts.
Imagine this: one stage, millions watching, and a single voice that made the entire room fall silent. That was the moment Jamal Roberts captivated the world on American Idol. But when the stage lights dimmed, he disappeared too. Where did he go? Why did his career suddenly fade? And most shocking of all, what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? This isn't just a story about a fallen star. It's a journey through pain, loss, and a fight to rise again from a darkness the public never saw. This is the untold side of showbiz that television never dared to show. Following his remarkable win on American Idol, Jamal Roberts returned to his hometown of Meridian, Mississippi, with hopes of resuming a life that once brought him immense joy and peace as a beloved PE teacher. However, what awaited him was a starkly different reality. Fame had changed everything. Roberts was no longer just Coach Jamal to his students and fellow teachers. He had become a national figure, a celebrity whose very presence disrupted the routines of school life. Students would swarm him in the hallways, teachers found it difficult to maintain structure in the classroom, and the atmosphere that once felt like home began to feel unfamiliar. Although he loved teaching with all his heart, Roberts realized that his continued presence in the school was causing more chaos than stability. In an emotionally taxing decision, he stepped away from his position, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. Despite stepping back, his connection with his school remained strong. He continues to visit, volunteer, and remain a symbol of inspiration to students and staff alike, proving that while fame may shift your path, it doesn't erase where you come from or who you are at the core. Shortly after leaving the American Idol stage, Jamal Roberts released his debut single titled Mississippi, a melodic tribute to his roots that served not just as a song, but as a personal love letter to the state that shaped his soul. With lyrics soaked in nostalgia and rhythms that echoed the slow, soulful heartbeat of the South, the track stood as a testament to his deep-seated appreciation for his upbringing. In interviews, Roberts spoke with emotion about how he wanted the song to convey peace and memory, the kind you feel when you walk barefoot on warm soil or listen to your grandmother's stories on a porch swing. The song was an instant hit, not for its chart-topping ambitions, but for the way it resonated with people who, like Roberts, carried the scent of home with them wherever they went. Fans and critics alike lauded Mississippi as a triumph of authenticity, something rare in a music industry often obsessed with trends. This track wasn't just about where Roberts came from, it was a statement about where he's going, anchored in truth, heart, and the undeniable charm of the South. Though many saw Jamal Roberts' American Idol victory as a golden ticket to stardom, few recognized the sacrifices that came with it. Chief among them, leaving behind a classroom that had once been his sanctuary. Before Idol, Roberts was known not just for his musical gifts, but for his unwavering commitment to his students. Every whistle blown in the gym, every life lesson whispered during dodgeball, was an extension of his love for teaching. But fame doesn't wait for the bell to ring. Returning to school post-Idol proved impossible. The cameras, the attention, and the disruption were too much. Roberts was painfully aware that his presence, once a calming force, had become a spectacle. With tears in his eyes, he made the heartbreaking decision to step away, not because he no longer cared, but because he cared too much. The burden of fame had taken its toll on a role he cherished. Yet, he remains close to the community, finding new ways to uplift the youth who once looked up to him in gym class. Fame, he realized, might demand change, but it doesn't have to demand disconnection. Before the national spotlight and Idol's glowing stage lights, Jamal Roberts had already planted seeds of his purpose in a quietly released gospel track titled Heal. It was a deeply personal ballad, written during a difficult season of his life, where pain, loss, and spiritual searching intersected. When he performed the song live during the Idol finale, something electric happened. It was as if every person watching felt the power behind his voice, not just in pitch but in conviction. Heal soared on gospel charts almost overnight, embraced by a nation still recovering from years of pandemic pain, political unrest, and personal turmoil. It became more than just a song, it became a spiritual anchor. Social media exploded with testimonials from fans who said the song helped them through depression, grief, and anxiety. Even hard-to-please Judge Simon Cowell was visibly moved, later describing Roberts' performance as an act of divine expression. For Roberts, the success of Heal wasn't about fame or numbers. It was about fulfilling a calling, using his voice to mend broken places, both in himself and in others. Transitioning from a quiet life in Meridian to becoming a full-time musician wasn't a smooth or immediate process for Jamal Roberts. Known for his humility and community focus, Roberts didn't jump headfirst into the glamour of the music industry. Instead, he eased in with intention, maintaining close ties to his hometown and resisting the pull to become someone he wasn't. Now spending most of his days in recording studios and rehearsal halls instead of school gyms, Roberts remains deeply grounded. He often reflects on his time as a teacher, crediting his students for teaching him just as much as he taught them. In interviews, he has said that their energy, resilience, and honesty shaped his music as much as any producer ever could. His career path may have changed dramatically, but his mission has not. Whether through education or entertainment, Jamal Roberts remains committed to elevating others. His fans aren't just listeners, they're part of a movement rooted in authenticity, encouragement, and soul-driven purpose. It was supposed to be the start of a promising solo chapter for Jamal Roberts. But just as he was laying the groundwork for his debut album, life threw him an unexpected curveball. Sources close to Jamal confirmed that he began experiencing chronic fatigue, dizzy spells, and even occasional memory lapses, symptoms that initially seemed minor but gradually intensified. After several checkups, Jamal was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that forced him to drastically slow down. For a man whose life revolved around high-energy performances, non-stop rehearsals, and emotionally charged public appearances, this diagnosis was nothing short of devastating. His management had to postpone scheduled appearances, cancel a small tour, and shelve his studio work temporarily. What followed was a long period of silence from Jamal, a silence that sparked speculation, concern, and even false rumors online. But behind that silence was a young man grappling not just with physical limitations but with a deep psychological battle. He questioned whether his body had betrayed him, whether the fame he had chased was worth the sacrifice of his well-being, and whether he would ever be able to perform again at the level he once had. During this period, Jamal withdrew from social media, choosing instead to focus on recovery, therapy, and understanding how to live within the limits of his new reality. This chapter of his life was hidden from the public eye, largely because Jamal didn't want pity, he wanted time. Time to heal, time to adapt, and time to rediscover who he was without the stage lights. And while the public may have only seen a pause in his career, those close to him witnessed a war being fought in silence, one where the opponent was not another singer or a public critic, but his own body. As Jamal Roberts slowly emerged from his health crisis, hoping to reclaim a piece of the spotlight, he found himself entangled in another unexpected nightmare. This time, not with his body, but with the very industry that once promised to launch him into superstardom. Just months after regaining the strength to return to the studio, insiders revealed that Jamal's relationship with his record label had begun to fracture. Behind the scenes, disputes over creative direction, production deadlines, and financial transparency were brewing. At first, these were small disagreements. Jamal wanted more artistic control, a say in the kind of sound and message his music carried, while the label insisted on more commercially viable tracks, leaning heavily into formulaic pop. According to one producer involved in the early demo sessions, Jamal felt boxed in, pressured to conform rather than create. The situation escalated when the label allegedly attempted to push forward a single that Jamal had explicitly rejected, claiming it misrepresented his values and current state of mind. When Jamal publicly distanced himself from the project via a cryptic tweet, "Not everything with my name on it reflects my soul," rumors spread like wildfire that something deeper was wrong. Shortly after, his team confirmed the shocking news. Jamal had terminated his contract. Legal battles followed. Contract clauses, financial penalties, rights to unreleased songs, all became weapons in a behind-the-curtain war that drained Jamal emotionally and financially. He disappeared from media again, not out of weakness, but out of disillusionment. He felt betrayed. For someone who entered the music industry with raw passion and deep vulnerability, this betrayal cut to the core. Interviews from former collaborators describe a Jamal who, once filled with fire and purpose, now struggled to trust even his own artistic instincts. Yet through the chaos, he refused to give up entirely. Instead, he began researching independent music routes, speaking to mentors who had walked similar paths, and slowly rebuilding a vision of his career that no longer relied on corporate approval. What the public saw as another fall from grace was in fact the groundwork for a creative rebirth. Jamal wasn't vanishing, he was escaping a system that had tried to own him. And as fans waited in silence, many unaware of the war behind the curtain, Jamal was once again fighting, not for fame this time, but for freedom. In a world that glorifies flashy comebacks and viral redemption arcs, Jamal Roberts chose an entirely different route: silence. After his highly publicized fallout with the label, Instead of announcing a new deal or dropping a surprise single, he disappeared from headlines, red carpets, and algorithm-fueled playlists. But just because he wasn't seen didn't mean he wasn't working. Sources close to Jamal revealed that during his time away from the spotlight, he immersed himself in independent production workshops, quietly learning the technical side of music creation. He reportedly rented a modest studio space in a low-profile neighborhood in Atlanta, far from the glitz of LA, and began experimenting with raw, stripped-down tracks that were nothing like the over-polished pop sound he had once been associated with. He collaborated with underground producers, local jazz musicians, and even spoken-word poets, many of whom didn't even know about his American Idol past. Jamal wanted to earn their respect not as a former TV star, but as an artist starting from zero. Former Idol contestants often struggle to break free from the show's shadow, but Jamal was determined to escape it entirely. He funded his own sessions, managed his own schedules, and even began editing his own music videos, painstakingly teaching himself digital editing software at night, fueled only by coffee and unfinished ideas. Friends say this period of isolation wasn't just about career repair, it was about personal healing. Jamal had endured public scrutiny, medical trauma, and industry betrayal. Now he needed peace. Through this quiet storm, he slowly reconnected with his purpose. And although he shared nothing on social media, whispers about his progress began to circulate in local Atlanta circles. One leaked demo, passed anonymously between music blogs, hinted at a Jamal no one had ever heard before. His voice deeper, the lyrics haunting, the message raw and unapologetic. It was heartbreak in audio form. Though many fans online begged for more, Jamal didn't cave to the pressure. He refused to rush. One of his close friends was quoted saying, "He's not trying to be famous anymore. He's trying to be whole." This silent comeback became his quiet revolution, a rebellion not with noise but with patience. In an industry obsessed with immediacy, Jamal Roberts was choosing intention. He was no longer chasing applause, he was crafting legacy. After years of silence and solitude, Jamal Roberts emerged, not with fanfare but with focus. His music, once a product of industry expectations and manufactured hooks, had transformed into something deeper, something sacred. According to those close to him, Jamal began to view music not as a means to fame, but as a form of therapy, a way to process the emotional wreckage left by his post-Idol experiences. He wrote late into the night, sometimes breaking down mid-verse, channeling the hurt, betrayal, and loneliness into lyrics that cut like truth. A former bandmate revealed that Jamal would often sit in the studio with his eyes closed for hours, listening to the same chord progression on loop, not looking for the perfect note, but for the feeling. His new songs were raw, stories of disappointment, survival, and the fragile hope that things could one day get better. One track, tentatively titled "No Lights, Just Me," reportedly opens with a voicemail recording from his grandmother, encouraging him not to give up. It wasn't just a song, it was a soul exposed. Mental health professionals who later worked with Jamal said he had reached a point where music was one of the only things keeping him grounded. And slowly, as he continued this deeply personal journey, something shifted. Fans began to find him, not through television but through word of mouth, open mic nights, and grainy YouTube videos uploaded by strangers. He started to receive letters, some from teenagers facing depression, others from veterans or parents who had lost children, all of them saying the same thing: "Your voice helped me." That was the moment Jamal realized that maybe his pain had a purpose. Maybe, in helping others heal, he could heal too. Though he had no management, no PR team, and no label, he had something more powerful: authenticity. In an age of filters and facades, Jamal's rawness became his strength. He was no longer chasing a comeback. He was building a movement, one heartbroken verse at a time. After years of emotional exile and cautious healing, Jamal Roberts found himself standing once again where his journey had begun, in front of a spotlight. But this time, it wasn't the blinding, commercialized chaos of national television. It was something more intimate, more meaningful. The venue was a modest theater in Atlanta, filled not with screaming fans but with people who had followed his story quietly, intimately, and faithfully. Word had spread online through small music blogs, emotional TikToks, and Reddit threads that Jamal from Idol was finally performing again, on his own terms. No label executives, no forced backstory, no countdowns. Just Jamal, his guitar, and a trembling voice that had found strength in its own cracks. The audience that night didn't come to be entertained, they came to witness healing. And as Jamal opened with a song titled "Beneath the Noise," the hush in the room spoke louder than any applause. His lyrics chronicled the aftermath of fame, the loss of identity, and the rediscovery of self in solitude. Tears flowed, not just from him but from attendees who had lived through parallel tragedies. After the show, a woman who had lost her son in a car accident approached him, clutching one of his handwritten lyric sheets. "You're not just a singer," she told him through tears, "you're a survivor, and you help us survive too." Jamal didn't have the words, only a trembling hug. In interviews he gave afterward to independent media, Jamal admitted this return to the stage wasn't a comeback, it was closure. He wasn't trying to reclaim what he lost on American Idol. He was honoring the man he had become because of it. The show might have launched his name, but the pain that followed had given him purpose. In a poetic twist of fate, the same camera crews who once broadcasted his downfall were now seeking interviews for documentaries titled The Ones They Forgot and Healing Through Harmony. Jamal agreed cautiously. Not for attention but to rewrite the narrative, not just his own, but for every young dreamer who gets chewed up and spit out by the industry machine. His story, once buried beneath shame and silence, was finally being told, with honesty, dignity, and grace. And as he looked out into the crowd, not for validation but for connection, one could almost hear the quiet click of destiny falling into place. Jamal Roberts, the forgotten finalist, had finally reclaimed his voice, not as a product but as a person.